on here. Good evening, everyone. We'll give everyone a few minutes to get logged on here before we get going. So I just want to make sure I give everyone enough time. If you guys can hear me, maybe just wave so I make sure I'm coming across. All right, I see a few of you waving, so at least I know you can hear me. We'll give another minute or so here just to let everybody get on if they're still trying to get on, and then we'll get started. Well, I think we'll get going. We'll let people hop in, and we are recording this session, and I will also send it out through Parent Link so that parents that were not able to get on tonight, they can hop on and then watch the video as well. Just a couple reminders before we get going. You're doing a great job on muting your mic, and so I'd appreciate that if you're able to do that. Remember, if you have questions, Mrs. Bloom is monitoring the chat room or the chat feature, if you will. Go ahead and put your questions in there, and then that way she'll relay them to me, and then we'll get them answered for you the best we can, okay? First of all, it's great to see all of you. Kids, it's great to see you. We've missed so many of you. It was a tough spring for you, and it was a tough spring for us, and we definitely missed your energy and your enthusiasm in the building. So it's nice to see your faces, and we're excited to work with you again another year coming up here, okay? Just a couple reminders in regards to this session. What we'll do is really direct the questions towards the existing virtual academy. What is there in regards to the foundation that has been laid out, the format that has been laid out for the district. So if you have questions that kind of fit within that, if you will, make sure you get those asked tonight, and then we'll try to get those answered for you. If I don't have an answer to a question that you have, I'll make sure I get the answer for you, and then I will send that out when I send the link out for the video. So I'll put the question in there, and then I'll put the answer in there as well, so you have that information if I don't have the answer for you tonight, okay? If you have any other questions outside of the existing Virtual Academy platform that is in existence right now that the district has put out there, please just make sure you shoot me an email, and then I can make sure I can address those questions as well, all right? We'll try to schedule, this is about an hour or so I've kind of scheduled. So if it goes a little bit shorter, that's okay too. And if we need additional time, and your question doesn't get answered, just make sure you email me, and then I will also include those in on that Parent Link message if I get anything later on, if we didn't get to that question and be able to answer that question for you. So make sure if your question doesn't get answered, that you do put that in the chat room, and Mrs. Bloom will make sure that she gets that recorded, and we'll get that answered for you, okay? So the first, just to start off with, I have had about, I would say 6 general questions, if you will. from both the Spanish immersion students and parents in regards to that program, as well as the honors program. And so I'm going to go over those 6 questions first, just in case that kind of covers the umbrella of some of the questions that you may have. And if you have questions outside of that, like I said, make sure you use that chat feature so that we can get those answered for you, okay? The first question I hear a lot from our Spanish immersion students and parents, and as well as the honors program parents and students, is, will students be able to continue in specialized programs upon their return to Edison? So for a lack of better words, do they lose their spot if they go into the virtual academy? The answer to that is no, they do not lose their spot. They're able to come right back into both of those programs with no questions asked. You're able to, if you come back at semester time, if you choose to go into the virtual academy, you'll go right back into that same programming, whether it be the Spanish immersion program or the honors program. If you choose to be in the virtual academy for the whole entire year, that would apply as well. So you would go right back into that programming, whether it be the Spanish immersion or the honors program. Now, obviously, there's a little bit of a caveat there, and this is probably geared more so towards the Spanish immersion program, is the fact that you'll need to keep up on your use of Spanish, both written, verbally, and well as your reading at home, to make sure that when you do come back, you're able to step right into that program and continue your academic studies in Spanish. The other thing that I will remind you of there, when you do come back, the teachers will do a great job on evaluating where you are. And if there are gaps there, we'll work on filling those gaps. And we'll do that right in the classroom when you return back to Edison, if you choose to go into the virtual academy, okay? So that's typically one of the primary questions that I hear in regards to, do I quote unquote get my spot back if I go into the virtual academy? Long story and a short answer, yes, you do, okay? The other question that I hear quite regularly, when traditional learning moves to remote learning, will students in the virtual academy move over to remote learning with other students and teachers at Edison? No, they will not. They will stay in the virtual academy, okay? So let's say, hypothetically speaking, we start in a traditional learning mode, meaning we have students back in the building, we've changed protocols or procedures within the building, and then all of a sudden we have an outbreak, whether it be in the community, whether it be in the Edison community, and we've decided we need to go into a remote learning situation, and the whole entire building then goes into remote learning. If you are in the virtual academy, you will continue to go down that pathway. So you'll continue to work in the virtual academy for the semester. Now, let's say, for instance, at the end of the semester, you decide, I'm going to come back to the traditional learning mode and I'm going to be in school at Edison, okay? Then yes, obviously, just like everyone else, if we would go into a remote learning situation and you're in the building, then yeah, you would go into remote learning with everyone else. But if you're in the virtual academy and we go into remote learning, you would stay in the virtual academy and finish that time period out, okay? So that's one of the second question that we have heard quite regularly. The other one is, will Spanish classes be available if we select virtual learning? And if not, how long can we be out of the program before they're able to be part of the Spanish immersion program? Unfortunately, no, there will not be Spanish immersion classes. And so what will our Spanish immersion students take? They will take the content that is at their grade level. So for instance, if you're in 6th grade and you're in the 6th grade Spanish immersion program, you would take 6th grade ELA, you would take 6th grade science, you would take 6th grade social studies, and then depending on your math placement, you would be placed in that math course that you would take here at Edison, okay? So there is not Spanish immersion classes for you to take delivered in the Spanish language, okay? Now, as far as you coming back, just like I said before, you come back right into the program just as if you were here, and then we would do an evaluation to determine, are there any gaps that we need to fill? And your teachers then would help you fill those gaps in the classroom when you're back with us for that programming. Okay, I'm going to cross them off here as I go along here. Okay, the next question. If we are unhappy or decide that our child can return to school, can we come back at any point, or do we need to wait until the second semester? So what we're saying as a district is, if you need to be committed to a semester. So if you're done and you go through the semester and you decide, you know what, we want to come back to Edison, then absolutely, we want you to come back. But if you're going to commit to the virtual academy, we ask that you commit to a semester. And a lot of that has to do with being able to have enough FTE in our building to make sure we have enough teachers in our building, because those virtual academy teachers are teachers that we're going to have from Edison. So we just have to make sure that we've got numbers to balance things out. So we want to make sure that when you commit to the virtual academy, you're committing to a semester, okay? So next question. What math placement will my student be placed in the virtual academy? You're going to be placed in the math class that you would have been placed here at Edison, okay? Meaning if you are in 6th grade and you're on track to take 6th grade math, you would take 6th grade math. If you're here at Edison and you were scheduled to take 6th grade accelerated math, that's how we did that here, because the 6th grade math is a little bit different this year. The 6th grade accelerated math is the 6th grade standards plus the first half of the year of 7th grade. And so when you go into the virtual academy, you're going to take the 6th grade math standards and the first half of the year of 7th grade math. And so that pacing, you'll be used to that, and your teachers in the virtual academy will help you pace along the way to make sure that you're prepared. If you decide to stay in the virtual academy the whole entire year, by the time you're done, you're going to have completed all of 6th grade and the first half of 7th grade math, okay? So that pacing will be laid out, so you're staying on track with the rest of the group here at Edison. Because what we don't want you to do, and we know some of you probably could do it, is work through all of 6th grade math, and then all of a sudden you decide at semester time, I want to come back to Edison. Well, then you come back and it's like you're out of whack, if you will, for what we've done in the classroom. So we want to keep you in line with what we're doing here. So your virtual academy teachers will help you pace that so you stay in line with what we're doing here at Edison, okay? So whatever math class you were scheduled to take here at Edison will be the math class that you will take in the virtual academy, okay? Now, this isn't a question I've heard, but I want to make sure that how you understand, how do you get in those classes? So once the virtual academy application has been approved and you've been placed in the virtual academy, the counselors, Mrs. Bloom, Mrs. Eggers, Ferry, and myself will work on getting you scheduled in those courseware classes that are appropriate for you based on what your schedule would have been here, okay? So once that takes place, we'll get you scheduled, and then we'll have more information for you once that is approved and your application has been approved and you've been put into the virtual academy, okay? The last question that I've heard is, will there be specialized honors courses? Okay, there will not be quote unquote specialized honors courses. And so when we sign up for classes, so if you're in 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, what you're gonna do is you're gonna take that grade level's content standards just as if you were here, because the honors teachers, they teach that grade level content standards, plus they go a little bit deeper. So what we've done is we've done a crosswalk of the classes that are offered within the courseware program and align them to make sure you stay on track as to where you're supposed to be. So I'll give you an example. If you're in 7th grade right now, if you were here at Edison, you would take Project Lead the Way in 7th grade science. You would take all of the 7th grade science standards, and you'd work on some of the physical science for 8th grade, because next year as an 8th grader, you're going to take biology. Well, with the virtual academy, we want to make sure you stay on track academically. So next year, as an 8th grader, you can go right into biology. So that means your virtual academy classes are going to cover everything that I just talked about, with the exception of Project Lead the Way. You will not get Project Lead the Way in the virtual academy, but you will get those other standards that they will cover in 7th grade science to ensure that you're on track or on pace for where you're supposed to be. And that's the same as in 6th grade and 7th grade for those courses. Social studies, science, language arts. We want to make sure that you stay on track to make sure when you come back to Edison that you're right where you need to be and there's no gaps or holes, if you will, in your learning, so that you can jump right into those courses come next fall or this spring. You'll jump right back in. So if you come back in for second semester after being in the virtual school, we'll get you right in and you'll go into the 7th grade honors science courses and so forth. And then you'll just pick up and go right from there, okay? Those are the primary questions that I've heard the most. So what Mrs. Bloom is doing is she's monitoring that chat feature. So if you have questions now, I'll take those from her, okay? Yeah. Okay, so how middle school will do this is we are going to have our teachers and keep it in-house based on the number of students that we have. So right now, we're waiting to see the number of kids that we have join the virtual academy, because we want our teachers to be able to teach that. I can't tell you specifically right now who those teachers will be, because it will be based on the number of students that we have enrolled in the virtual academy. So so our staff will take care of those virtual academy courses. I just can't tell you specifically who that will be. So what we'll end up doing is probably collapsing sections, and I know that doesn't mean a lot to you, but it's the number of classes that we have. We'll collapse a section, and then that teacher will pick up that virtual classroom, if you will, for that particular class. Because we're not getting additional FTE, if you will, for the virtual academy. We will use what we have here at Edison. So if we have 100 kids leave Edison, we don't have additional staff that go with those 100 kids and we get to keep all that FTE back. We have to be able to consolidate that FTE. So we think the best option for us at the middle school level is to handle that within house. And so we'll sit down with our staff and make sure that we can handle that situation here with our existing staff, because they also know you and we can communicate with one another to make sure that your academic needs are being met. Okay? Yep. Okay, so if you were slated to take a high school course, so whether that be algebra, whether that be accelerated geometry, whether that be biology, whether that be 8th grade Spanish 1, or if you're a 7th grader and you were scheduled to take Spanish 1 as a 7th grader because you were in the Spanish exploration course last year, or if you're a 6th grader and you're going to take the Spanish exploration course, you're scheduled and going to go into all of those courses. And so all of those high school courses outside of the Spanish exploration course will be delivered just like they would be if you were here. So you will still receive high school credit. You will still be graded at, and that will still go on your transcript just as if you were here. So all of that content, all of those standards in those high school courses will be delivered the same way, okay? Yep. So the question is, what does the virtual academy curriculum look like? Is it self-paced? Will there be group work? Will there be collaboration amongst teachers or so forth? The curriculum is driven through the Edmentum program through the courseware software, meaning all of the classes are in that courseware. The teacher's role is completely different than remote learning. And that's what we have to make sure that parents completely understand. There's a difference between the virtual academy and remote learning. In remote learning, if you think back to how it was last spring, where the teacher led the instruction, the teacher was there for input, for self-guidance, to answer questions, so forth. That will be part of the virtual academy, but they will not deliver the lessons. The lessons will be delivered through the virtual academy and through the courseware software. The teacher's role is there to just monitor, to make sure you're engaged, to help answer any questions, to grade the work that you've worked on. They might get you to do some group work and some collaboration, but as far as direct instruction, there will not be direct instruction through the virtual academy. So it will be a lot of self-pacing, but the teachers will basically, I'm going to use the word restrict, how fast you can go through something. So they might say, here's a 2-week window for you, and these are the assignments that you need to do in the next 2 weeks. And then interact with you on that, but not deliver direct instruction with that. They will be able to help you if you would have a question, say you don't understand a concept, and then they will have sessions there for you. They'll have virtual sessions where synchronous sessions, if you will, where they will be live, where you can come in and ask them questions and they can help you through something. But as far as direct instruction, they will not do that piece of it. So that's the big difference between remote learning and the virtual academy, is that one main thing right there. So the virtual learning, or the virtual academy, is really about the programming that's there with the courseware software, okay? So Mrs. Bloom said the question is, what's really the difference between the virtual academy and remote learning if we have to go to a remote learning option? There's a great diagram, if you will, in the parent handbook online that weighs the two out side by side and tells you this is what remote learning looks like, this is what the virtual academy looks like. Like I said, the big difference between the two is that direct instruction will not be present in that virtual academy like it is in the remote learning, okay? You will still have access, obviously, to a teacher where they're going to supervise, monitor, help you self-pace, give you feedback, but there will not be that quote-unquote direct instruction. So that's where it becomes extremely important that students are engaged and parents are able to help their students be engaged. The staff member will help with that as well, but there also will be very important that parents are able to help with that as well, okay? But I encourage you to look at that document, at that parent handbook document with the virtual academy. It will lay it out side by side so that you're able to look at, here's what the remote learning looks like, here's what the virtual academy looks like.
Others have so far signed up for the virtual academy.
Yeah. So the question is, what will a typical virtual academy day look like for a student? So students are going to take at least 5 courses, okay? And those 5 courses, what the recommendation is about an hour's time per course. So there will be times where your teachers will have synchronous times for you to come in and ask questions and maybe say, you know what, I don't understand this concept. Can you help me through it? They'll be able to do that. But typically a typical virtual academy day is you're going to have 5 courses at a minimum, okay? And that means your 4 core areas plus an encore. So everyone will take health for a semester, and then the other semester you'll be able to choose from a list of encore electives for you to choose from. So you'll have that, and each one of those courses will be about an hour session for each one. So you should plan about a 5 to 6 hour day. instructional wise and pacing wise, and there might be some work for you to do outside of that as well. So close to a quote unquote typical day as if you were in school for your engagement, but it might be just a little bit different as well.
Hay muchos niños.
Okay, so the question is, what does the pacing look like? And can a student move ahead if they're capable of doing so? What they're gonna do is they're gonna really pace you again to keep you in line with what we're doing here at school. Because if you were to come back, we have to be able to get you back in that schedule and keep you on the same pacing that we would have our other students here. So if you're in 7th grade accelerated math, and all of a sudden you come back after first semester and you're clear out into the 8th grade standards and you're almost done, that will not align with what we have available for you when you come back. So what your virtual academy teachers will do is they will keep you in line and keep you paced out, but they're gonna add additional enrichment activities for you. So they're gonna make sure they meet you where you are academically and challenge you, and it might look a little bit different for each person outside of the virtual academy courseware programming. And so they will make sure they give you some intervention stuff. They will make sure they give you some enrichment stuff if you need to be challenged more. So they will work on that as well, but they will make sure that you're pacing relatively with what we're doing here in the building and what our pacing guide is for our curriculum here at school. And Mrs. Bloom said she put a link to the handbook in the chat. So if you are not familiar with it, it is on the district website under the COVID-19 resources. And on that page, if you go to the virtual academy and hover over it, you'll see the parent student handbook there. And it's got that information in there. So if you want to compare the two, the virtual academy and the remote learning, what's the difference and how are they similar? Yeah. Okay, great question. How will we do band, orchestra, or chorus in the virtual academy? If you want to do band, orchestra, and chorus in the virtual academy, you would come in during those scheduled times during the day. And we'll work with you, the counselors, Mrs. Blue, myself, Mrs. Eggers-Ferry, will work with you in setting up that time and letting you know this is when you would come in. So for instance, like on a quote unquote traditional day, 6th grade orchestra, band, chorus will run from 1:16 to 2:06. So you know that's the time frame that if I'm going to do band, orchestra, chorus as a 6th grader, that's when I'm going to come in and do those activities, okay? The other thing to make sure you're aware of is that our kids that go into the virtual academy, they're able to do band, orchestra, chorus, and any extracurricular activities. So if you want to be involved in athletics, you're able to do that as well, okay? But we'll work with you once we start working on the schedule with you in regards to getting you scheduled for those courseware classes and let you know those times and communicate that information for the band, orchestra course. Okay, so the question is, will the virtual academy be easier to navigate through versus the remote learning that we had last spring? I'm going to put this little caveat up front is I would love to be able to rewind and go back to March 16th and start all over knowing what we know now, because we're going to be a whole lot better with remote learning than we were 4th quarter. And I will say going into this year, that remote learning, if we have to go that route at some point in time during the year, will be a whole lot better. The remote learning this year will all be driven out of Schoology. And so there will be no going to Schoology and then linking into Google Classroom. It will all be housed within Schoology. And we're trying to make sure that everything in regards to programming, or if we need to use a program, that's in the class link. So you're really only working in 2 platforms, if you will, rather than having to bounce all over the place. And so we've really streamlined that to ensure that parents are able to navigate that. And the reason we love Schoology in that sense is parents, you'll have access to a Schoology account. So when your son or daughter says, yeah, I have that work done, you can go check and see if they have that work done. Where in the Google Classroom, you weren't able to do that because Google Classroom didn't have that availability for parents to be able to have an account to go in and see what your son or daughter was doing. Where Schoology does that account, have that ability, and that's why we do like that piece for parents, that you're able to go in and monitor your students and where they're at academically and if they're being engaged in their courses. So long story short, I think the remote learning, I know the remote learning will be much better than it was fourth quarter. It was a learning process for us, and we know it was a learning process for the kids. It's one of those things where we had about 12 hours to prepare, and obviously that's not enough time to get staff enough professional development to make sure that they feel comfortable and our kids feel comfortable. The other thing I think that you'll see in a traditional setting this year is the use of Schoology in the classroom in a traditional day in and day out activity. So kids are familiar with working within that program and that platform. So if we would go into remote learning, it's just second nature. This is something we do in a day in and day out practice. This is just who we are when we go in the classroom. So it will be much better. So I would say they're going to be they're pretty equal, I would say. I don't know, I haven't been in the virtual academy piece. The courseware programming is new to me, so I'm excited to be able to get in there and see it as well. Everything I've heard in regards to the Edmentum and the virtual academy is it's user-friendly and that you're able to navigate it relatively pretty easily. So. Okay, good question. Have the teachers in the virtual academy been able to test out the Edmentum or the courseware software yet? We're going to be in the process of doing that with staff so that they're comfortable with it and they've got the PD and professional development to make sure that they're comfortable going into that program. So they'll have specific training just for the virtual academy. The other thing that we're doing with all of our staff is we know lessons virtually look completely different than lessons in person. And we know that good teaching practices in person have to transfer over into the virtual world as well. And that was one thing that we felt was lacking last spring. So that's our primary focus this fall, is the Schoology platform and making sure our staff feel comfortable delivering virtual lessons and what makes a good virtual lesson. It's not a sit and get or a produce, it's learning, and we need to get back to learning and making sure and being able to evaluate student learning rather than just assigning things and having kids complete stuff. We can't do that. That's not good teaching practice. And so we're adjusting that piece and addressing that piece. So we will make sure those virtual academy teachers have that information going forward. Okay, so the question is, a student comes back into the building and they're following a traditional layout, if you will, and that student has to go into quarantine, whether it be a close contact situation or say they've been diagnosed with COVID-19. Do they go into the remote learning piece of it? Yes, we are working on that piece, on delivering that instruction, because our viewpoint is it would be no different than a student, say that in a traditional year, if they're gone for 2 weeks, we're going to deliver that instruction, and there are students. So they would be in that remote learning platform, and we would drive the majority of those assignments through Schoology, because like I said before, we want kids to be comfortable with Schoology. So we're going to use it in the traditional classroom when you're here, so that if you are out, we can do that. A great example is in South Dakota, we know from time to time we have snow days or we have power outages or whatever it may be, and we have to miss school. Where our view right now is we don't need a snow day because we can just push right into the remote learning aspect. And so that's what we want our kids to be able to do is if you can't be here, we want you to continue to learn when you're at home. And we'll do a lot of that through that remote learning platform. And our platform is the Schoology platform. Okay. Okay. The question is, if we have the ability to stay home, would you like us to stay home to decrease the number of students in the building to promote social distancing? I would love to have you in the building. We would love to have you in building. Our true belief is I would love to be able to say in remote learning or in a virtual learning platform, we can replicate what we do in the classroom. But the reality of it is we can't replicate what we do in the classroom because you don't have that direct, immediate feedback from that teacher. You don't have that direct, immediate instruction from that teacher. So my point is we're scheduled to have 1,205 kids here. I would love to have 1,205 kids in our building come August 31st when we run a full day. So I really go back to it's what's best for you and your family. Because ultimately we know this is a tough decision. It's a tough decision for all of us. We all have kids that are here. Mrs. Bloom has kids. Mrs. Eggers-Ferris has kids. I have students. And it's been a really tough decision for all of us, but we have to just sit down as a family and what's best for you and your family and then make that decision. So me personally, I know we can't replicate in the virtual world what we do here in a building. That's why we have brick and mortar buildings, and that's why we have you come to school. Because I truly feel like the magic does happen inside these walls. But then I also completely understand there are situations where parents, they need their student to stay at home and the virtual academy is the best route. I totally understand that. So I would support you coming here, but I'm gonna support you and you're an Edison student, no matter you're in the virtual academy, and we're gonna support you, make sure that you get the best education possible and you're an Edison cat no matter where you are, okay? We would love to have you here and if that works out, great, but if not, and it's what you and your family decide that you go into the virtual academy, we're gonna support you there too. Yeah, so the question is, what does physical distance or social distancing look like for 1,200 kids? And what does a typical day look like in regards to the traditional format at Edison? So what we're doing right now is we have a COVID task force here at the building. And so the district has put out the R2L plan, the return to learn plan. That's kind of the shell for us to work within, if you will. So what we're doing with our COVID task force is now we're gonna take that shell and do a crosswalk and understand how does that impact us here at the building. So the district has given us the guidelines. Now we need to talk within our building to come up with that. And so our COVID task force is made up of as administrators, the counseling department, some staff here in regards to teaching staff, as well as custodial staff, the nursing staff. And so we're working through those right now. We have another meeting coming up here on Thursday. Once we're done with that, we're gonna send out, here's what a day would look like. Here's how we're social distancing within the building. And so we'll send that document out for parents so that they're able to see that. So I don't have a direct answer for you right now. I just want you to know we're addressing that at the building. So the district has completed their R2L plan, and it's a draft, obviously, but we have the shell or the framework to work within right now. And now we're working within our task force here at Edison to see how does that apply to our building and how do we put those things in place to ensure we can promote the safety and health and wellness of our students and our staff here at Edison. Could there be open lunch? Can you pick up your student at lunch? You can always pick your student up at lunch. You're welcome to do so. We've had that in place. The only thing we don't allow, obviously, is for you to check out other students, but you can always pick your student up if you want to have lunch with them. You're welcome to do so. We've never discouraged that. The other issue that we want to address is this year's schedule looks different than it did last year. And this was just by happenstance before we went to making sure that we can social distance, but our lunch periods are actually going to be 2 periods. And so our lunch block of time is going to be 55 minutes. 25 minutes of that is going to be for the students to have their lunch. Then they'll have a 5-minute passing period to get ready for their afternoon classes. And then the other 25 minutes in that time is their pro time intervention enrichment time. And so we're running a 4A and a 4B schedule, 5A, 5B, 6A, 6B. So those are our lunch periods. And basically what we've been able to do is split those in half. So we've got half the number of students in the cafeteria, which means it helps with that social distancing as well. And so we will limit the number of students that are sitting at the cafeteria to promote that social distance. So if you do come to pick up your son or daughter to have lunch, they have a 25-minute lunch period with a 5-minute passing period. So you got about a 30-minute window, roughly speaking, before they go into pro intervention enrichment time. And so that's something that's kind of worked out in our favor. We're running a little bit different schedule this year than we have in the past, and that's to address our cafeteria. We knew we were full down there, and we knew we needed to do something different. And so we thought, you know what? We want to do some enrichment and intervention with our students as well as our pro time curriculum. And we want to decrease the number of kids in our cafeteria at a time. And it just happened, this worked out best for us to be able to do that. So those cafeteria numbers will be split in half, roughly speaking, to alleviate some of the pressure that we do have in the cafeteria during lunch. That's a good question. So the question is, if we send our student to school and then decide that before the district goes into remote learning, can we keep our son or daughter at home for remote learning? I don't know the answer to that, okay? My first knee-jerk response would be, we would treat that as you being absent and you would not go into the virtual academy, but I need to get some clarification on that. So I will write that question down and then I'll make sure I get that answer for you, okay? What about physical distancing on the school bus? There will not be additional bus runs. There will be traditional bus runs. They will promote good hygiene, sanitation, wearing masks. It's not required, but it's expected for you to wear them. There will be cleaning on the bus by the drivers. All of those safety measures will be in place, but in regards to practicing the 6-foot barrier, obviously that is not able, we're not able to meet those needs on the bus. So that obviously will not be able to happen on the bus, okay? Yeah. So the question is, will parents be able to come into the building and get a feel for what it's like? Right now, and this is at this point in time, we have completely restricted who can be in the building to staff and students. So at this time, parents would not be able to walk through a schedule to get a quote unquote feel of what that would look like. Okay, the question is, can the schedule be adjusted so students can step out and get fresh air during the day? I'm going to leave that up to staff, and obviously we're going to talk about what's good sanitation practices, what are good practices in regards to wearing masks, what are good just mental breaks for kids, because it's not only about just getting fresh air, it's about how do we give kids breaks throughout the day, because it's stressful for everyone, and it's really stressful for our kids. And so we have to acknowledge that, and so we have to address their emotional and social needs as well. And so we will encourage staff to do and take those breaks. But as far as quote unquote a scheduled time to step outside, we've not scheduled those times in place. Okay, the question is, what will PE look like at Edison, and what will PE look like in the virtual academy? The virtual academy, that one I can't answer. I would imagine, and again, this is just me in speculation, it will look like this spring where you will have activities to do and you will do journaling and tracking or a log with that, but I don't know that for sure. So I will write that down and see if I can get some more information on what that looks like in the courseware, okay? As far as what PE will look like here, we'll practice all of those good habits in regards to social distancing, ensuring that we are sanitizing, ensuring that we're making sure we're cleaning commonly touched areas. The PE staff will be worked with in making sure that they understand what does good practice look like for PE, because it's obviously going to have to look a little bit different. Whereas in regards to partner work, game activities like that, we're not going to be able to do those things. And so we're going to have to adjust, because just like in the classroom, we can't have pods and we can't have collaboration. It's going to unfortunately look very traditional. Parents, I hope I'm not aging myself, but it's going to look like what it looked like for us, where the desks were in a row, they're all facing forward, unlike what we know as good learning practices and good teaching practices, where we have pods and we have collaboration and we have kids communicating and bouncing ideas off each other. We're not going to be able to do that, obviously, because we want to promote social distancing the best we can. And so our PE are going to have to follow suit. And so those, you know, partner activities and so forth, those are going to have to go to the wayside. And it's going to be very individualized when you start to do your activities there. And we'll work with the PE staff to ensure that. Yep. So the question was geared really towards honors in regards to some of the activities that they do, because we know a lot of the curriculum is driven towards collaboration and group work and so forth. Yep. Those are probably going to be look a little bit different than they have in years past, because of the fact of we want to promote that social distancing. And so those group works, those collaboration activities, they're going to have to be extremely limited. Now, I'm not going to say when the desks are in a row and the teacher says to their students, I want you to quick turn to your partner and have a minute, think, pair, share. That might happen. Now, you getting into a group and working on a project for 20 to 25 minutes, that will not happen. And so they will be extremely limited in regards to what that group work and that collaboration will look like, because we truly want to make sure that we're promoting that social distancing. And we have those measures in place in the classroom. And like I said, unfortunately, as educators, I feel like we're going back about 15 or 20 years in time and going back to an old traditional classroom. And it's unfortunate, but because we want the safety and health of our students and our staff to be primary, we know we need to do that for the time being. Okay, that's a good question. So the question is, if we have signed up for Virtual Academy, do we need to attend the Web Orientation Day or Catapult Day or CATS Rally? You do not need to attend those, okay? You're welcome to attend them if you want to, in case you would come back second semester. You're welcome to do so. The issue with Catapult Day is you won't have a schedule, so you won't be able to walk through a schedule, and at that point, you won't be assigned to a team. So the only thing you'll really do is get your picture taken, which we want you to be in the yearbook and we want you to be in to get your picture taken. So we'll establish times for you. If you aren't able to come on the 24th for Catapult Day as sixth graders, we'll set those times up with you, because we have times set up on September 1st and September 8th. So all of our students that go into the Virtual Academy will communicate that information with parents, because we do want to get your picture taken, because we do want you to be in the yearbook and so forth, because you're an Edison cat. And so we want you to be part of that. So we'll get that information out to parents once we get that list finalized. But as far as Catapult Day and web orientation, you don't need to attend. You're welcome to attend, but like I said, it would be limited on the stuff that you'll need to do. What will course look like? They're in the process of finalizing what course will look like. They've been waiting for a report, a national report to come out for a recommendation for our fine arts for band, orchestra, and chorus. And that just came out at the end of last week. So I know they're working on that right now. That'll be one of the things that we put in our notes in regards to this is what a day would look like. We'll put that information in for band, orchestra, and chorus. And so they were waiting for that national report to come out, and that did come out last week. So right now they're devising what that will look like, excuse me, for our district for band, orchestra, and chorus. Yeah. So the question is, what's the minimum basically to go into remote? There has not been a set quote unquote number. What the district will do will work with health officials. They will work with the Department of Health through the state Department of Health to make that determination. So there is no set requirement. So I can't say if we have 2 positive cases, we're going to go into remote. We don't know. The district has not set a threshold, for a lack of better words, in regards to the number of positive cases that we have in the building or the community. What we will do is work with health officials here in Sioux Falls, as well as the South Dakota Department of Health, to make that determination, and then they will help the district make the call whether or not we would go into remote learning. And we've talked about that in the district. That's in the Return to Learn plan, that there might be a building that goes into remote learning and the district might not be. And so it will be really a building case-by-case basis, so we can really address the needs at that building, because there might be situations where there might be an outbreak in a building, but the rest of the buildings aren't impacted. And so there might be a situation where our building goes into remote learning, but there has not been a threshold established, because we'll work with the health officials here in town, as well as the South Dakota Department of Health to make that determination. Yep. Okay, so the question is, will staff be required to wear face masks or a shield? So the expectation for our staff as well as our students is that they will wear a face mask or a shield, and every staff member is going to be given a shield, and every staff member is going to be given multiple face masks. Now, this is where choice does come into place. We're expecting it. We're going to model it because we believe in that. But I can't force a student to wear one, nor can I force a staff member to wear one. I can expect, I can talk about the benefits of wearing a mask. I can talk about the benefits of wearing a shield when we're working with our kids, but me forcing a student, I cannot do that, nor can I force a staff member, but I can expect it, but I can't require it and mandate it. Yeah, the question is, will there be some monitoring at the bathrooms to make sure that kids aren't congregating in the bathrooms to promote social distancing? That's one of the topics actually we started talking about on our COVID task force, and that's one that we want to come back to when we meet again, because we need to figure out, is it a situation where we close bathrooms down during passing times and we control the number of kids that leave our classroom to go to the bathroom in a sign-out format? We're just having those conversations as a COVID task force to determine what's best practices for kids, what's best practices for staff to ensure the safety and welfare of every student and staff member here. So that's a conversation that we'll have, and that again will be something that we put in that document that we send out to parents. Oh, yeah. the question was, are neck gaiters acceptable? Absolutely. We think a face covering of any sort is better than nothing. And the conversation we've had, or people have asked me, can students wear a face shield? And absolutely, if you want to wear a face shield, you're welcome to wear a face shield. What CDC would say the best practices for our staff and for people in general, obviously, is a mask and a face shield. That's the best option. The second best is a mask. The third best is a face shield. So if you rank them in kind of order, we think the two together are obviously the best options. And that's what we're going to promote our staff to do and encourage our staff to do, because that's best practice. So that's, again, we firmly believe there are benefits in wearing a mask. However, like I said before, I can't mandate somebody to do it. I can't mandate a staff member to do it, nor can I mandate a student to do it. I can strongly encourage them to do it. And I can say, here's the benefits of wearing a mask. Here's the benefits, not only for you, but for the health of our community at Edison and our health of our community in Sioux Falls. And then at that point, go from there. Okay, so the question is about the assessment. So I think how the district has it laid out in the Virtual Academy Handbook is more geared towards, if a student was out the entire year, they would be required to do the state assessments. And the state assessments is our Smarter Balance assessment that we do in April. That's the assessment that students would be required to complete, because that's a state mandate on us. If a student would come back at semester time, we would have the 2 MAP assessments already completed, because we do one in September and then we do one in December. So second semester, if a student would come back, they would participate in the spring MAP assessment that we typically do at the beginning of May, and the Smarter Balance assessment that we do towards the end of April. So those would be the 2 that our students would complete if they were back in the building. If you are in virtual learning the whole entire time, or the virtual academy, you would do the Smarter Balance assessment in the spring. And we're working through those details and establishing what those look like during that time. Yeah. So the question is, are we sanitizing or fogging in the classrooms? Can we open windows, so forth? We will not do the fogging. We will do sanitation in the classroom. And so every staff member will have a sanitation spray down bottle. We're going to encourage staff, and we're establishing a cleaning schedule, if you will, on wiping desks down. We're going to strongly encourage, and I'm going to use the word prohibit, if you will, sharing items within the classroom. So we're going to encourage students to have materials with them. And if we think you need something, we're going to make sure you get your own, so you aren't sharing with somebody else. So we want to make sure that you have your own items and that you're going to carry your own items with you. But there will not be fogging. But we will work with staff on a cleaning schedule, if you will. Right now, how it's laid out in the R2L plan is it's daily. We're going to work with staff and see if we can increase that in regards to getting those rooms, and especially the desks and the chairs, wiped down. I'd love to say we could do it between every class, but the reality of it is we need staff members to be in the hallway supervising as well. So it becomes a balancing act of being in the hallway and supervising, and yet also cleaning your rooms. And so we got to find what's the sweet spot to get those 2 things done. And so that's a conversation we'll have with that COVID task force, as well as coming up with what's the best plan for our staff and our students to be able to do that. Okay. This will be the last question. If you have additional ones, you can always shoot them to me, okay? Just email them to me. Okay, the question is, I understand Edison is working on our plan yet through our COVID task force. but are they leaning towards students staying in the classroom or rotating in the classroom, rotating classes? Right now with the middle school model, it's so unlike an elementary where you could have quote unquote classrooms and have restricted classrooms or static groups, if you will. Middle school has a really tough time doing that because we have encore periods and kids' schedules just don't line up that way. So right now, we are not planning on having static groups. We will look at, are there ways that we can reduce the number of kids in the hallway? And if that's best practice, what's that look like? And so that is something that we'll talk through with that COVID task force to come up with a plan, and we'll communicate that because that's one of the things that we want parents to know. What does passing time look like? You know, in the old schedule, I would say it was great because we kind of had staggered times, but right now our schedule vertically aligns, and there's positives to it and there's negatives to it. And one of the negatives this year obviously is having 1,200 kids and moving 1,200 kids throughout the building. And so we've talked about a bunch of different things. Do we make stairwells one way where a stairwell might be just up from the lower level, and the other one might just be down? And so we're having those conversations, and we'll have that laid out for parents to make sure they have that information. Okay. Well, I appreciate you guys being here. Again, if you have any questions, just shoot me an email, and then what I'll do is I will attach those questions into a parent link message and send it to this group. If you have questions in regards to the virtual academy, if you have questions in regards to processes in the building, like I said, with the COVID task force that we have, we'll have that, and then we'll get that, information out to parents as soon as we possibly can. Okay? You guys have a great evening. Kids, it was great to see you. Take care, everyone. Stay healthy. Bye-bye.